Okay. All right. Good question. Here we go. What do you make of the recent Alex Pereira tweet? Do you think they've offered Yuri the title fight? To me, that would probably be preferable for Pereira. If Yuri wins, he can just bonk him in the head again. But if Yuri loses, it'll give Pereira more time to prep. I seriously struggle to believe that they'll try to screw over Pereira in some way, considering he's one of the few names that has any buzz. All right. When was the last time somebody got hacked and A, they wrote just one tweet, and B, wrote in such a way that like echoes specific things about the broader reality? Right? Like fighters complaining about the UFC on Twitter. This has been done, or social media has been done a million times. And it echoes like if you didn't know it was hacked, you'd be like, right, here we go. Exactly. You know what I mean? It's one thing for like Dustin Poirier to get hacked and be like, oh, click this link to buy my MacBook, or someone hacks Kamaru and then they're just saying the N word or something like that. You know what I mean? Or, I'm bang your mom, like whatever that guy was doing when Kamaru got hacked that one time. He was going after Connor, I think. But, it was a bunch of tweets in both cases. And it was, you could tell that something was off. Reading that, I mean, yeah, it's English, not Portuguese. It matches up with a behavior pattern that would indicate it was intentional and not done by a hacker, like it was done by the actor himself, or, Poatan or somebody in his camp. I'm not declaring to you that's what happened. I mean, in the end, I don't know shit, and I haven't asked around either. But if that's a way to hack, it's a really weird way to hack. Could be true. But it feels off to me. That we're making very specific complaints that you've heard echoed through history or recent memory and more broadly history around a prize fighter who could be going through negotiations for his next opportunity and did this as a way to like push back on them. I know what you might say, which is, oh, Poatan did all the stuff for them. It is absolutely true that there are a lot of fighters who do solids for UFC and then don't get paid back. But it is also true. You just have to call it like we see it. I also know of cases where guys did do solids for the UFC and then the UFC did pay them back. It's not universally true one way or the other. And it's probably a little bit more. I've heard the complaints that they didn't get their back in the end, but I've absolutely heard fighters tell me the UFC did me a solid, blah, 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 blah. So it can go both ways. For me, I'm skeptical that it was hacked. I'm not declaring to you what it was. It doesn't match up with what we know from what other hacks look like. It matches broader reality in a way that seems familiar. If you're asking what might the case be, it's almost always the same thing. Sometimes it can be pay, but if you're locked into your deal, then the pay is what the pay is. But the other part could be, we need you for a certain date. Hey, we need you for, what is it, May 8th? We need you for June 16th. I'm making something up. Well, no, I can't do that. All right, we're just going to pass you by. Well, wait a second. I just saved you all of those times. You can't just delay this? And the answer is the UFC has to make sure that their trains leave the station on time. The events that they owe contractually have to take place. They have to keep these titles in rotation. They have to keep other guys busy. This is what I mean. The most important thing you can do for the UFC in terms of making it work for yourself is just saying yes all the time. And that's not because they're going to pay you back down the road. They might not. I don't know. Everyone's situation will depend. But it's just because you can build a lot of momentum doing that. And especially if you do what Poatan did, where you just saved basically almost an entire year. And you could blow up your status doing that. It's just such a great way to get ahead in the game. And again, in certain cases, it might come back where they give you a real big, prize in the end. And I know what you might say. It's like, could they really be getting sideways with Poatan where they're letting John get away with bloody murder? And the answer is yes. It could actually be. Again, I do not know if he was hacked. I don't know. But it would not surprise me a little bit if they were like, hey, we need you on this date at this price. And he was like, no. And they're like, we're just going to move on. And he was like, couldn't believe what he was hearing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've heard something like that. Not so much about the price issue, because that's a little more baked in, but like, hey, we need you on this date. And you're like, oh, but I just filled in the last 2 fights were short notice. We need you on this date. Can you do it or not? And that's what you get. So I guess time will tell. I saw the tweet got community noted. Let's see if he retires anytime soon. Let's see how this goes. But for me, oh, Alex came out and said it was hacked. So did it look hacked to you until someone came in and was like, oh, it was hacked? Like, it didn't look that way to me. But in the end, I'm just guessing. I don't know. Last thing I'll say on this. We've talked about it a million times on this chat. Dude, fighters lie all the time. Most of the interview answers that they give to these questions are either lies or halfway lies or like, white lie or something. And again, we've been through it a million times. Oh, what's your game plan? They're not going to tell you. Oh, how are you feeling? I'm feeling great. So much of that is just occupational necessity. But I'm just telling you as an observer, like a fighter said X. Oh, well, I'm just going to believe him. Don't do that. Don't do that. Or at a bare minimum, do this. Like, they say things in the media that are false intentionally every day. Again, might be required to live that way. It's not a moral judgment, not totally, or not much anyway. Maybe in certain cases. But you have to understand, like, they'll just say things. So with that in mind, and the whole circumstances of being kind of weird, I'll wait to see what further reporting on this shows. I guess we'll see. All right. I'm finally starting to see the UFC criticism pick up online. Yeah. Alex blasting them a bit, plus Tom, plus John, plus these cards just being so low stakes, seems to have people finally fed up. Okay. Do you see them making changes to appeal to fans, or do you think that they genuinely don't care and they're going to bet on the monopoly money machine to continue to carry the business? Well, that's a good question. That is a good question. I would say in general, I would not expect them to do much, at least not right away. I mean, understand what's about to happen. First of all, they're going to sign a new television rights deal, which may still include staying on ESPN, potentially in totality. I don't think so, but at least in significant part, like at a bare minimum, pay-per-views might stay on there or something, right? So there's that, but they're going to sign a new television deal, and I don't think they're going to get the $1 billion a year that they were seeking, but even if it's, double what they got in the last one, so that's closer to what, 600 or 700 million a year, that's still a enormous financial windfall, right? So they're about to hit even more fucking money. And that deal, who knows how long it will last. The last one was signed for 5, then they upped it to 7. They might do another 7 years. So we're talking into the 2030s before, the guaranteed money that they're essentially making will come up for grabs. Now, I think after that is really a much more interesting question. People keep asking, like, both in terms of the state of the product as well as what it might mean for them to be so politically polarizing in terms of, heavily leaning into one political party and one political identity and what that does to attract a fan base more broadly. And again, maybe it does nothing. We don't really know. But none of those questions, that aside, or just the product, you're not even going to get an answer for that till much later. Now, if things get like dire, I guess there could be some, force majeure things in the middle, but I find that to be unlikely. So just set the context here. They're not going broke anytime soon. So the reason I bring that up is like, without significant financial pressure, what incentive do they have to do a whole lot better? So consider that. Now, part of that television deal might restructure the way in which they deliver content. And that could offer a material boost in a number of different ways. Both, let's say they do 4 fights a year on Netflix, and each one is just a fucking extravaganza. Like every quarter, Netflix is about to come out with a fucking banger. What does that do to the product? What does that do to enthusiasm? It probably does a lot. And it doesn't fix many of the other perceived issues with content quality or, card frequency. So this is what I mean. Like, there's a lot of ways in which this malaise that people are feeling can be masked, or to bare minimum, kick the can down the road. I mean, the thing you have to ask yourself is like, one, what about the overall worldwide economic headwinds? Are we going to get into a recession? If so, how severe? What does that do to? Because again, it's not just the UFC charging a bunch of money for ticket prices to these events. It's like if you want to go to a concert, we've been over this. It's insanely expensive. What does that do to depress the overall market? You know, what does it do to attendance? You know, or let's say that the new television deal doesn't meaningfully restructure the content offering in some kind of way, and then the path that they're on sort of continues forward. What does that do for, you know, the ability to sell out arenas or whatever? I mean, all of these things are hard to know, and I suppose they're all in question. But people keep thinking that like, oh, we're close to a tipping point. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not close to a tipping point. We are at a point where you are to the point you're raising. We are at a point where you are seeing visible evidence of discontent in the ranks. Yes, that is visible, and that is having, in certain ways, some expression on pay-per-view buys. Although that's also part of a broader change in pay-per-view more in general. And this card is not selling particularly well, both I'm sure on pay-per-view and even at the gate. There are examples of this kind of thing happening. But monopolies have to get broken up by law for a reason, because it just, it makes it's very hard for a monopoly to go out of business. It's very difficult. The world is probably filled with some noteworthy examples, but part of the joy of having a monopoly is that, you don't have to be as concerned with some of these things. And, people just being like, I'm just not going to be an MMA fan anymore. They could change their consumption habits to a degree. Well, maybe I won't go to shows as much. Maybe I won't buy as many pay-per-views. And again, there could be an accumulative effect, but I'm just going to point out, like, one more time, it is extremely powerful for a business to be able to say your choice is us or nothing. And then on top of it, they might have a chance to hit a little bit of a reset button with how they do content in this upcoming deal. Now, of course, they could also make it even worse, or they could split it up a million different ways, and you never know what card is going to air on what platform and blah, blah, blah. Who knows? And they do nothing to figure it out. I'm just saying, like, from where we're at to economic boycott, which is what would be required in order to facilitate even some kind of change, we have a ways to go. We have a ways to go. People don't think that because they can see, I can read belly aching online. Oh, that must mean it's like really real. But, that's not what's showing up at the live gate. That's not what's showing up in terms of like the ability for the UFC to attract a new broadcast partner for their upcoming deal. We're not there yet, and we may never get there.